Hey guys, this is Ken McElroy, and you are listening to the Mailbox Money Show with Bronson Hill.
Welcome to the Mailbox Money Show. I'm your host, Bronson Hill. I'm really excited to be here today. I've got my co-host in the studio, Nate Hambrick, the author of the 18 Laws of Leverage. Nate, we're going to talk today about creating your future. I know you're someone who has really created a bright future for yourself, for your family. What's something that, like lately, you've been looking at in terms of this, in terms of this topic?
Yeah, so actually last week I attended an event for Ryan Pineda, got to hang out with Ryan and Taylor Welsh and a whole bunch of other entrepreneurs. And the thing that really struck me is I'm going to say all of them live life on their own terms. They all have businesses that are conducive to who they are as a person. And so Taylor's business looks completely different than Ryan Pineda's, who looks completely different from X, Y, and Z. But just creating not just a beautiful life and a wonderful life for other people looking from the outside in, but creating the life that you actually want. And I'll speak for myself here. I'm sure other people do the same thing, but a lot of times I create goals. I create a life that I think is something that people would look up to. And then I have to pause and say, is this actually what I want? And I'm amazed at how often it's not.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, this is going to be a phenomenal chat and a wonderful show.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We've got in the studio today, we've got Emily Cassel, who hosts the Like Nobody's Business podcast. I was just on there recently. She's an amazing woman, young woman who's achieved a lot, both on the entrepreneurship side as well as in coaching, coaches a lot of young women, and just really, she has this concept called the infinite upward spiral, which I think is really fascinating about how you develop yourself as a leader or in your business. And again, I think that's what we all want. We all want to be a better version of ourselves tomorrow or a year from now than we are right now. So, Emily, welcome. How are you today? So good to have you here in the studio.
Hi, it's great to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. It looks like you're just in a very peaceful place there. It looks like better
I
homes and
know.
gardens behind you or something.
Well,
Nice.
we're actually, it's funny you say that. We're staging our home. So, like, my
Oh,
office shifted since you were on my podcast. I was like in
yeah.
a different orientation. So, this is the staged version.
Yeah. It looks
If
like
anyone's
a
looking to
magazine.
buy.
Yeah, yeah. And what area are you in again? Where do you live?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston. Okay, so you got a
Yeah.
charming house in Charleston if somebody's interested. So,
Yeah.
give us a little bit of your background. We were just talking. I was saying, "Oh, did you come from corporate?" And you're like, "No." That was like a big reaction. Did not come from corporate. So you came from like an approach to get into coaching, which a lot of people I know would love to be coaching others. But how did you
Mhm.
start that, and what was your inspiration to do that?
Oh yeah. So I always like to say I have a really weird story because usually people go the other way. And I was like, I looked at corporate and I was like, yeah, no, never, actually. That's fine. That can
Yeah,
stay
we're
there,
okay
not
with
for
that.
me.
We're okay. We're okay with
Okay.
corporate. Corporate can kill your soul, so it's good if you
Yeah,
can.
it can.
You
And you know what?
can.
I've been thinking a lot about this lately because corporate has shifted so much. So I think at the time, right, we were looking at a corporate landscape that required business casual and commuting and, a very different climate than what's available today for more hybrid work, work from home, fully
Right.
remote, those kinds of things. So I'll caveat it with that, but things are changing in a good direction. But so my background is in psychology, marketing, and sustainable food systems. I went to an all women's college undergrad, and I always had a sense that I wanted to start my own business and work for myself. And my mom had started her own like professional cleaning and organizing business sort of out of necessity when I was about 15. And so I helped her. I was like with her throughout that time. And she was also a woman who um, was part of like an MLM model, like she
What's
was
your level?
selling Mary Kay and it was like this slog. And I was with her at some of those professional development events and things as like a young girl. So I had a front row seat to some of the downfalls and the challenges and the perks as well of all of those different models. And what I saw and what I felt then translating that into my experience at an all women's college and really focusing on positive psychology specifically, is that a lot of women kind of get into business in a way that it's about lifestyle or it's about just trying to like scrape by or just trying to contribute a little bit to the family bucket. And what I was really curious about is what's the difference between women who really like go for it and have like a legitimate business, not because they're trying to be a girl boss, but just because they're a boss. Like
Yeah.
it's not gendered. It's just like she's a badass, and she sees herself as like a millionaire in the making, and she's going for it, or she's trying to build a unicorn company and get funded or whatever it is. And there's so much in the positive psychology field that kind of indicates a lot of those qualities or characteristics that we can measure and operationalize what actually makes the difference and what sets high performers apart. And so that was kind of fascinating to me. And I quickly realized once I had experienced the positive psychology elective within my major that I was like, this is what I want to do. I was like
Yeah.
searching and trying to figure it out. And I knew that the applied version of that was coaching. And so my professor, thankfully at the time, was like, you shouldn't really do this 3-2 program and get a master's in counseling. If this is the work you want to do, just do it
Yeah.
and become a coach. And I was like, all right, well, I'm 19, 20. I don't know
Yeah.
what any of that means at this point. My plan was to be in school for 5 years. Now I'm going to be in school for 3 years, graduate a year early. Like it was a crazy period, but
Mm.
I think I really just trusted myself. I was delusional and didn't know what I didn't yet know. And I think I still try to bring that approach to things where I'm like, but why not? Like, why isn't it possible? Or I'll figure it out, And so that's my sort of background. And I worked in a small magazine publishing company for a while I self-funded my coach certification. And then I started my business and left that full time and have been full time ever since 2014. So
Amazing.
things have evolved a lot. Like I started just as a personal brand, and then I sort of built this movement and community of women through my brand Woman Up at this
So,
point, and we're
so it's,
about 3 years into that.
amazing. I love it. And I'm excited to see what else you're going to create. To me, it's amazing. And I talk about this a lot on this show. This is the Mailbox Money Show, talking about wealth. We've talked a lot about different asset classes people invest in, but we've done a lot of mindset stuff. And I think that
Hmm.
one of the things I love about it is that almost every single person that is successful, that has achieved financial freedom, that has created a business, that has done something really hard or done, some big life, bucket list kind of thing, it's that they are a mindset person. They spend a lot of time and work. And so positive psychology, it works, right? It changes the way you see yourself. It changes the way you see what's possible. And I wanted to ask you, Nate, when it comes to the laws of leverage, positive psychology, talk about how that fits in with how you've seen people leverage themselves to be more successful.
Yeah, I think honestly, one of the laws of leverage is stand on the shoulders of giants. And to your point, Emily, we don't know what's possible. And I'll speak for myself, one of the most motivating things in life for me is meeting somebody less talented, less hardworking, just an average Joe who's absolutely crushing me in every other aspect of their life. And then you realize, oh, wait, they know something I don't. And that is
Yeah.
just a beautiful place to be in. And so, as far as the laws of leverage are concerned, I'm a firm believer that, mentors and reading books is for most people their ticket into the life that they want, right? The most successful people on planet Earth wrote and condensed all of their best findings into a book you can buy for $10 to $15. Why would you not read that? Right.
Hmm.
And I remember The Miracle Morning was the book that unlocked that for me. I think before that book, I was reading one or two self-help books a year, read The Miracle Morning, and Hal Elrod sold me on the fact I needed to read more. And so since then, I've read a minimum of 60 self-help books a year. So over one a week. And it has radically increased my income and radically improved the life that I have. Because it's not just about income, it's about the life that you build on the back end of that. And so I was actually going to ask you, Emily, how did you actually get there though? Because everyone wants to be a successful entrepreneur. Few
Hmm.
people actually do it. So give us like some tangible steps. Like how did you actually get to where you're at?
Great question. So, yeah, I think from day one, I realized that there was a lot that I didn't know, and that having support in my corner was going to be the like coefficient of change, right? Like knowing that having the wisdom, I think, to know that you don't know everything, and then filling those gaps in advance proactively to know that I'm going to create the conditions for myself to be successful. Exactly how is kind of an emergent process, right? In the moment, every step you take reveals the next step. But I felt like I really needed to be planted in a space where I felt supported. So that looked like masterminds, investing in masterminds, getting in the room, having experiences, not being afraid to like show up to something and not be transactional about it, but just say like, this is who I want to be, is a person who goes to this thing or is part of this group or is part of this thing or reads these books or does this. And so shifting my identity and then also having the awareness to know there's so much that I don't know that I will learn. And so creating like a little, almost like a little fertile ecosystem for myself to grow and evolve within and then to grow out of, to the point that I would need to adjust and expand beyond those initial borders. Um, I know that's not super specific, but
No,
mastermind
that's great.
investments, coaching, like really getting in the right spaces, because that healthy peer pressure will do so much for you and like lifts the floor so you can shatter the ceiling so much easier. Um, Anything you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to get strong and work out, you join a gym, right? Like you get around other people who are trying to move in the same direction, and that collective momentum is so much, it is so much, it's such a leg up from trying to do all of that effort on your own to get to a place where you can actually just show up, you know? So
Yeah,
I
this has
think
been one of the
that's a big
biggest
part.
things. Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest things for me too, is just getting in the room, right? Getting in the room with amazing people, because there's that quote, and it's funny. I find the same quotes, like I keep repeating them because they really work. They're so true. It's like you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Like
Mhm.
you want to grow in area of health or wealth or spirituality or finances or business. Like it all is like you got to get around people that are 10x, 100x of where you're at. I'm sure you've had some great mentors in your life that have really helped you along. You had that teacher or professor that was really instrumental. Said, "Hey, just forget all this like stuff in between. Just go straight into it," which is great. Like, I wish
It's
we
a
all got that
hack.
kind of advice, right? It's a
My
hack.
God.
And then,
Yeah.
but like their afterthoughts. I've been in rooms sometimes where like people, someone be in a room with like the average net worth is like 50 to 100 million, and it's like their afterthoughts are like, "Oh my gosh, I should totally like I didn't even think about that," 'cause it's just things, or people that are wildly successful. So I guess for you, how do you approach like mentorship or coaching for yourself, like from a personal level? Do you always pay for it, like when it's a coaching? Because I think masterminds usually pay for it to be in the room for or being around the people. Sometimes there's a coaching element, sometimes not. But like, and do you run a mastermind as well? Don't you run a mastermind as well? So like, can you
Yes,
talk
I
about like
do.
how do people, like, I guess what's the difference between like masterminds and getting coaching? And do you get coaching, or do you like I guess how do you balance that out when from a growth perspective?
hmm I'm not sure that I've ever not had coaching or been part of a mastermind since I started my business 11 years ago. Like, I'm pretty sure that that's been something. I'm like trying to think, is there a period of time where there was a lapse? But I don't think there was. And that's just the honest truth, because you're creating a culture, especially when you're working solo and when you're working from home, you have to create a culture for your work environment, right? And for
Yeah.
yourself. Otherwise, and you want that to be like a learning culture and a growth oriented culture. Um, so I think about that as always having that investment. I think of it like an insurance policy on my vision. If I'm not going to, like if I mean what I say, I better be willing to back it up with some capital and some awareness that like I don't know how to get there or else I'd already be there. So like
Yeah.
help, right? And humbling yourself to receive support, I think is huge for both men and women. I think we live in a world and a society that really values this illusion of independence and
Mhm.
feeds that illusion that we're supposed to be able to figure it out on our own. But that's actually like the dumbest thing you can try to do, because it's a complete waste of energy. As Nate
Yeah.
said, right? Stand on the shoulders of giants. Why would you start and like reinvent everything if there are little not that there are real shortcuts, but there are things that it's like, oh, if you operate like this, you're already ahead.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, noted. Um, and so I think about it like also the coaching space, the coaching industry, masterminds, everybody has their own version of that and everybody runs it differently. So I think that's the hardest thing as someone who leads masterminds for the last probably 10 years. Um, and really, I bring a lot of care and intentionality to the way that I hold my spaces and the way that transformation happens throughout and where each person is as they enter the space. And so there's a level of facilitation and space holding and intentionality that I think has to be there for real results and real change that's sustainable
Hmm.
to occur. But there's a lot now. Everybody wants to have a mastermind, everybody wants to, lead a thing. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's actually a skill set here that is a little bit different than just being a great coach. There's also the space holding of a group and really ensuring that the values and the vision of that space come through in the facilitation of it. So
So
that's how
true. And you actually brought up a good point earlier when you were talking about, paying the money for the mastermind. Like if I believe it, I'll pay for it. And the
Mhm.
old adage that people who pay attention. And as funny as it sounds, sometimes writing the 5 or 10 or $15,000 check is the
Mhm.
difference between you actually doing the thing you said you were going to do and
Yeah.
not.
Yes.
I know, for myself, there's so many instances. Maybe the only reason I got it done in the timeline I got it done was because I put money on the line.
Yep.
It can be a really powerful motivator. And so, in that line of thinking, I was going to ask you, Emily, what are some of the ways that you've noticed for yourself and for people that you coach, ways that people can speed up their growth, right? Because we all know people that are
Mm.
growing slowly and steadily, but they're not going very fast. And then you meet some people where they're reinventing themselves every 90 days and their business is exploding. They're growing as a person. What do you feel like are those catalysts or just practical tips that you've learned in coaching people that help people speed up that growth?
Mm. Oh, I love this question. I think there is like we Bronson mentioned my infinite upward spiral framework and approach, and that's kind of the way, right? It's like that gaining traction and momentum that is self-sustaining and compounding over time leads to exponential growth that's much faster and bigger than incremental growth over time. And there's nothing wrong with an incremental growth approach. Like for some people, that's actually what they want and what success means to them and what they have capacity for and all of that. But if you do want to speed it up or accelerate it, I think there are a couple of things you can do. The first is you can really start seeing you have to shift your perspective into one that is more of an infinite game. And we all probably have read this book, the Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game.
Yep. Great book.
But it really is like growth, business, success, love, all of these things are infinite games. And it ultimately is like you against you every day and you against, I don't know, you with life in partnership with life. Um, that that relationship is infinite and ongoing, right? There's no end point where it's like I will have achieved love or I will have achieved business, right? It's like no, I will have achieved leadership. No, you become deeper levels or higher levels or more expansive versions of that experience over time. You cultivate that. And so I think taking an infinite approach in terms of mindset and perspective and knowing that there's no linear destination, everything's nonlinear, it's gonna change, not getting too attached to exactly the outcome or exactly how, and really focusing on the process, the experience, the journey. It sounds trite, but it's so true because that's where all the learning happens. That's where the growth actually is. And if you're constantly popping out of that and trying to avoid it or get through it or get over it or under it or whatever, you're not actually capturing and receiving what is right in front of you, right? You're trying to like future trip or you're like worried about the past, but you're not fully present. And I think that's where all the learning and evolution and growth happens. That's where you become the next version of yourself is in this moment. And so we have to be paying attention to that. We have to be taking an infinite approach. Also, as we said, getting in a room of people who are moving in the same direction, attempting to do the same thing. And there's a distinction here where you're not getting into an echo chamber or a silo. You're getting into a space that hopefully has diversity of perspective, insight, industry, something that, or different backgrounds or something that adds this blend of creativity and expression or something different that you can't bring to yourself every single day that is helping you to innovate and reinvent yourself and disrupt yourself and whatever it is that you're working on or building or moving toward. So it's an important distinction to not have an echo chamber or an industry silo, but to actually have that collision point where growth and innovation can happen. And a lot of spaces I've found um, when it's like very niche or very industry specific or very whatever, and people are just doing that. And like, it's like playing one note again and again and again, and then wondering, like, why is there no harmony in this song? It's not very catchy, like
Yeah.
you need to play a different note. We need to have new ideas introduced. We need to cross-pollinate. We can't just sit in what becomes now a comfort zone, even though it looks like a growth edge, because maybe you're paying money or you're getting on a plane or whatever. But the reality is, if you're in the same room and you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like you need to disrupt yourself and constantly
Yeah.
think about like, what's that edge? What's that opportunity to disrupt before I have to? So proactive, not reactive disruption of self and creation of business, leadership, whatever it is that you're
When you
working
talk
on.
about disruption, I think that's awesome. Is obviously putting in yourself in situations where you're not the smartest person in the room. We talk a lot about wealth on this show, and I would love to know from a mindset perspective. I'm writing my second book now called Rich Brain: How the Wealthy Change Their Brain to Change Their Bank Account. And we talked about that on your show. And but what are some of the like kind of the blocks that you see from a mindset perspective people have in regards to wealth? Whether it's in
Mhm.
investing or taking their business to the 10x type of level, what is like what is me getting in the way of me when it comes to that?
Mm. I think for me, and again, the people that I work with are women. So for women specifically, it's a lot of self-worth tied up in money and a lot of and not even just self, because I don't want to say this in a way that blames a woman for a societal, systemic, centuries-long conditioning process, Like it's not a personal failure to feel like you are an imposter in a world that was built to make you feel like an imposter in spaces where you aren't supposed to be, right? So we'll say that. I think it's I think that the biggest things with money are that kind of is like blaming yourself for a systemic thing and and not using that as an excuse to not make money or to sit down and go be, a trad wife if that's not what you actually want to be. But I think there is this this feeling of worthiness or deserving or what I'm supposed to do or what my cultural conditioning says, or becoming too powerful or too much or too wealthy if I'm a heterosexual woman, at least, right? Like, what if this box that I'm in is pretty comfortable. And so if I step out of it at all, how's that going to change the dynamic in my relationship, in my marriage? Is my husband going to feel emasculated if I start making $1 million a year or something? Or I'm afraid to outgrow my partner or the people or friends or relation. Women are very relational. And I think that that's our strength and genius in so many ways. And where it can start to work against us is when it comes to money, because we start to get all of that stuff gets all messy and murky, and we start to have our like value and worthiness and money and love and all of these things like tied up together, and it becomes very confusing to pull it all apart and see clearly. And to make moves that are really self-honoring and that move us closer to the vision and fill that gap and collapse the distance. So I think there's a lot of that like inner deep work around what does womanhood mean to me? And what does it mean to be a powerful woman in the world? And what does it mean to be wealthy as a woman? And what are the other layers of that that maybe subconsciously are self-sabotaging me from actually doing it or creating it or receiving it or being open to it or even expanding my vision to the place where I can see myself as a millionaire in the making, or
Mhm.
that I am building a unicorn company, or I'm sitting on a gold mine, and not just think of it as like my little business. Because most people will ask you like, oh, how's that little side hustle, or are you
I
still
hate when
doing your
people do
business?
that.
And it's like, you mean the one that's paid my bills for the last decade? Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
yes. Um,
And I
but
wish,
yeah,
on that note, like I wish women were the only ones that felt the societal pressures. And unfortunately, we all deal with that. I'll speak for
I deal with
myself. There's so many
imposter
times where
syndrome all the time. Yeah, like,
yeah.
I should myself all the time, where I tell myself what I should be doing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny how often, I'm going to say the majority of the time, although I'm kind of making this up as I go, the majority of the time when there is some sort of societal expectation, from friends, from family, etc., those are always pushing me towards things I don't actually want, but think that I should have. And as
Right.
simple as it sounds, one of the greatest victories I've had in my life many years ago is just asking myself, Nate, what do you actually want? And the answers often surprise me as far as I verbalize things that I'm not pursuing. And then it gives
Mm,
you you have to be a little bit honest with yourself and decide to go a different route. And so I think it's really cool that you help people overcome those expectations, because more often than not, they lead to mediocrity and lead to stuff that we don't actually want. And so,
mhm.
with that, I was going to ask you, Emily, how do you view passion? How does passion work its way into everything that you do? Because it sounds like, just from hearing you
Mm.
talk, first of all, I'm getting fired up. So I know you're a passionate
Oh,
person.
good.
How do you
yes,
view
fired
passion
up.
for the people that you coach and for yourself? Is that a priority when you decide, or you help people decide what to pursue and what not, or what's the framework you use to help people live the life that they actually want?
Mm. I think passion is both an indicator of what makes you feel more alive and what therefore is like the right thing for you to pursue. And also, I think people are afraid of passion sometimes, right? It's like, oh, that's a little dangerous. Or maybe that's, I don't know if that's
Why is
something that
that? I
men
agree
feel.
with you,
I don't
but
know.
why is that?
It feels very forbidden to feel like actually in love with what you're doing, you know? I think we have this idea, and it's so deeply layered, right? But it's cultural, it's like our idea of work. It's who knows why. There are many, many layers. We could talk about that for 10 days. But um, yeah, it is. It's this idea that like it is a good indication of where you should go next and what you should pursue. Because I used to have this magnet on my fridge that said something like, um, I don't remember who the person was that this quote was from, but it was like lukewarm, not good. Like white hot and passionate, great. Lukewarm, not interested. Like if you're not feeling anything about what you're doing, if you're neutral, that's concerning to me. If
Mm.
you don't actually care enough, you don't have enough fuel source in the tank to be able to sustain what it's going to take to actually bring that thing to life. I think the passion is the indicator and the fuel source, and I think sometimes we go through phases and cycles, of course, where we're like, this is a slog and I hate this part. But also, like, usually we can channel that passion and find it again. And I think that's really our work as entrepreneurs and leaders, is to tend to that flame. And sometimes it's going to be a little flicker, and sometimes it's going to be like a huge bonfire, but and anywhere in between, but we cycle through when we feel really excited about something. But I think if you're in the early stages of something, you want to feel that sense of passion, and you want to feel that tied to something that's bigger than you, not just like, I like this, but this is what something that the world actually needs. This is how this connects. This is what's in it for everyone who I serve, not just I enjoy doing this thing in my own little bubble, but like when that idea hits the market, or when that concept touches someone's life, what does that do? What's the ripple effect? What's the impact of that? And if that isn't big enough and you're not actually passionate about the impact, the mission, the way it gets done, I think there's an opportunity to either reinvent or change course, because you've got to have that fuel source and that inner
Real quick,
GPS.
interrupt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that this is a big problem in our society, right? People are
Hmm.
most people don't like their jobs. 60, 70% of people are not engaged at work. And we're doing what we have to do and not what we want to do. We just had an interview recently with a guy talking about like, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Sometimes you do this for survival, but you try to carve out the space where you can start
Hmm.
investing in yourself. You going to mastermind, start doing these things that you can do if you're able to do. But I think, for a lot of people, I think they have these goals and then they get what they want and then they realize they really weren't passionate about it at all, right? Like a lot of it's around money, right? Oh, I just want the money
Hmm.
because it's the money and I can live how I want, I can travel, whatever. Well, travel is great. I travel a lot, but travel is kind of empty. Like you travel for a while, you travel for a week, it's great. You travel for a month, 2 months, it's like what's there's no purpose in it. What's actually there, right? So what do you say
Hmm.
to people like discovering that like are in that where they're like, oh, I'm not sure what I want. I think I want this, and when it's time to re-examine that and say, hey, what really do I want, and what really is important to actually make a difference in the world?
Mm. Gosh, I think it's the big question, right? Like if we could answer that simply, so many things would be solved. But
Yeah.
I think it's really knowing yourself, right? It's knowing like having a deeply intimate relationship with yourself and what you really want, what you love, what you're great at, what your strengths and skills are, what kind of impact you want to have in the world, in this one wild and precious life, right? And also increasing exposure if you're not sure, or if you're in a phase where you're like, oh, that wasn't it for me, like I needed something new, where you're actually exposing yourself to things that might spark that for you. Like you have to, again, create that fertile environment, that fertile ecosystem for yourself to be able to be exposed to new things, to have an opportunity to actually feel that again. Sometimes we get so caught in these routines and like we're always constantly like, oh, I just need to do, my 5 hour morning ritual and go to the gym and then my whole life will be perfect. And it's like,
5 hour ritual.
like some of these things, it's like, what? You wake up at 5 and then you're doing your thing for 5 hours and you're just like, what? Is that what you're passionate about? Because maybe what you're passionate about is routine and like
Yeah.
health. But if not, maybe that's taken up a lot of space where you could be exploring other things. And it's not that you're not doing things that are good for you or healthy, but like if you're playing the same note, it's not very interesting. You're not giving yourself exposure to be able to have like new ideas and things come in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like those Instagram reels where the guy gets up at 5 a.m. and is like puts his face in a bucket of ice, then he does this, then he goes there. It's like not even real. And it's like people are in love with
Like
this
who's
image of like who's got time to first of all do this and film it and do all this stuff.
exactly. And
But
who's
it's
doing it every day? Like what a scam.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
maybe
that's
you are, but if you are, like I'm sorry, I don't want anything to
yeah.
do with like, my friends and I would joke, I'm married, but when we were dating, it would be like, yeah, you don't actually want to date the guy who like only eats chicken and rice and a sweet potato and broccoli. Like that is boring. Like after a week, that is boring. Like it's a good meal, but when you have it every day of your life, it doesn't really feel exciting anymore. Like, is that the point of life? So you can have
Yeah.
like a bigger bicep? Who
Var-
cares? You know?
Variety really is the
Like,
spice of life. And I think
truly.
as entrepreneurs, we're so gosh darn lucky that our jobs and life is our playground, right? And
Hmm.
I know so many people. Let me know if you can relate to this, Emily, but I know so many people who don't necessarily completely hate their job, but they don't love it. And they go through life just from one boring thing to the next boring thing to the next boring thing. And I just think there's so much more to life than that. But I'm always amazed when you meet someone who they don't even realize that the world is their oyster and they can go do things that they love. And so I'm
Hmm.
curious with all the people that you coach and all that, when you meet somebody who's done the boring 9 to 5 forever, they don't really have that excitement for life anymore. How do you ignite that spark? Like, do you just go give them a swift kick in the pants to go to the next Tony Robbins event? Do you like, how do you get people to realize that there's so much more they could be doing that they'd actually love?
I think honestly, the answer to that is really simple, and it's you be the embodiment of something different.
Oh, good
And
point.
people, it either triggers the shit out of them and they run in the opposite direction and they want nothing to do with you and they're like, oh, I hate this person. Or there's something in them that says, wait a minute, if she can do that, or if he can do that, or if they can do that, or whatever, maybe they've broken this mold, they've broken my brain, my frame in my mind of what's possible. Huh. So you're going to have some people who lean into that and are curious and are like, okay, show me how. What are you doing differently? What's happening here? I want to understand. I want that too. And then you're also going to repel people who are like triggered by the fact that you are breaking the mold and breaking the frame because it's a house of cards that if you pull one out, and if that's true, if that's possible, well, then the rest of my whole life is constructed on, a foundation of sand, right? So I think I was just talking to a friend about that today of like being someone who is passionate or intense or whatever, it like has that polarizing effect. And that's just part of it. I think there's no way around that.
It's been
But
said that if half the people in the world absolutely love you and half the people absolutely hate you, you'll be wildly successful. And we see that in politics. We see that in celebrities, all kinds of things. People are very polarizing. And so,
Mhm.
but if we're in the middle, I think kind of going to your point of like be passionate about something, like or hate, or you just get around something that fires you up, and it will
Mhm.
really help you. Emily, this is incredible. I love talking about this, and I love, especially I know you work with a lot of women, and I just love the work you're doing with women, for the women in our lives. Talk a lot about my daughter, and just being able to try to support her, and really kind of help in those ways. Wanted to ask you, how can people follow you, hear about your show, reach out to you if they want to inquire on coaching, just some of the things you're doing? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, thank you. Well, you can always find me on Instagram at Emily in your business is my
Emily,
Instagram.
in your business.
Yeah.
Love it.
So that's probably the best way, and everything else is kind of linked there that you can find things or dig into the podcast. Podcast is anywhere you listen to podcasts, so just search for Like Nobody's Business.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you being here at the Mailbox Money Show. Super excited to stay connected to you and hear about what you're creating, and just even congrats on all the success. And we'll look forward to connecting again soon with you.
Thank you, you as well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. All right, so another great interview, the Mailbox Money Show. Again, we talk a lot about mindset because it really is the difference between you getting to your goals and you not getting to your goals. I would say it's consistent with what Tony Robbins said, that 80% of my success has come from just simply being in a different place in my mind, not being in self-sabotaging behaviors, not procrastinating or doing things that actually limit myself when I go in a room, or my self-talk being negative. Those are huge, huge things. Nate, what were some takeaways from you from this interview?
I mean, a lot of good stuff. One of the simple things she talked about right out of the gates is just getting into rooms with the right people. And that's something I take for granted because I am in a lot of masterminds. I probably do 14 conferences a year. And so I rub shoulders with a lot of influential people, and forget the influential part, a lot of people that are doing amazing things with their lives. And when you meet those people and have just regular conversations with them, it leads you to change the way that you behave and the way that you act on a daily basis. And so I take that for granted because I've done that for years and years and years. And so that was a great reminder for friends and even people just listening to the show on the importance of putting yourself in circles where people are doing the things you want to be doing.
Awesome, man. I love it. We're getting ready to head out to, you're going to be coming out to California here for the Wealth Forum, which we put together our own mastermind. And we're actually creating a version of the group that's a starter pack. It's a free group. So if you send me an email at Bronson Equity, I can send you some information on that, where there's a free version of it. There's some free networking online. And then we talk about some of the other stuff that we have, or there's ways to join some of these interviews that we're doing live, as well as join the live events where we'll have 20 to 30 high net worth people in a room. We'll have some amazing speakers. And just really, those are the places that make you better. I'm a better person because I've done some of these masterminds and made some connections, had some business partnerships, and I've literally made millions of dollars just from simply being in rooms with amazing people. So appreciate you being here, Nate. Thank you to our audience for being here. You're what really makes this a great time is really getting and knowing that we're impacting people, and that if you have specific guests you want us to interview, let us know, because we are always looking for great guests to be on the show. Mailbox Money dedicated to passive income, the mindsets around it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Mailbox Money Show. You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.